Hello and welcome to the Birds of a Feather Colors podcast.
Thank you for being here. I'm Amy.
I'm Ryan, and today we welcome Cher McDonnell.
He's the producer, mixer, and engineer of all the Birds of a Feather records. You keep lifting me up. Hello.
Hey,
Hi. It's so great to see you.
It's really good to see you. I'm sorry, I'm just going to turn your volume up again because you're...
Sure, yeah. So we have this, we have the Cubase running, and we have a camera up here.
Yeah.
And then yours, and are you,
I'm one in your toilet, Cher.
But, does he have to, how does Cher have to do it? Does he have to,
you have a toilet cam as well, do you?
Yeah.
All right, so this is for all the lovely people listening to this, either on YouTube or on Spotify. So we have the great honor to welcome Ger McDonnell. And we'll just tell people a bit about you. Ger is an incredible producer, a recording engineer, a mixer, an amazing musician, but most of all, a heartwarming human being. So, and so here we go. Let's fill it up.
So that's it. Bye, Ger.
So here we go. At the age of 8, Ger began to study orchestral percussion at the College of Music. He studied there for 8 years and was then drawn to the world of making records. He served his time working as an assistant trainee recording engineer in various studios around Dublin, and then had the chance to meet producer Mike Hedges. Cher went on to work extensively with Mike in many of the best recording studios in the UK, Ireland, and France. And now here we go. He's worked with bands like U2, Def Leppard, The Cure, Manic Street Preachers, Kasabian, Texas. He's worked with artists like Shane MacGowan, Sinead O'Connor, Dido, Martha Wainwright, Van Morrison, Lynn and Marlene. And for projects like Celtic Thunder, he's worked with Patrick Doyle for the soundtrack of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Celtic Women, and many, many, many more. We just randomly picked some. And we know that you're the most humble person in the world, so this must have been very awkward.
It was hell. It was hell on earth. But you have done your homework. My goodness. It's like this is your life or something. It's really strange, but...
we just thought it would be nice to let people know who you are and what you've done so far.
That's it. That's just a really basic biography of the story so far. You know, you have all that experience to try to condense into a few credits and things like that. And I'm my own worst publicist, as you can see. So thank you for blowing all that smoke in my direction. That's very kind of
You're very welcome. No, but I think, we'll find the way into this. This is all new for us as well.
We'll certainly add Birds of a Feather to that list very proudly, actually.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm going to amend it this afternoon, actually. You're going on that list. The Hall of Fame.
Thank
but
you.
It's just, we thought, to start this off, we'll just ask a couple of questions about your journey as a musician, as a producer, an engineer and everything.
Yeah.
And then we'll just let it happen and talk about our experiences together and the journey we had so far. And we'll just see where this goes. Yeah. But, so our first question, we had it, we're prepared for this. So we wrote down, you began to study orchestral percussion at the College of Music when you were only 8 years old. That really stunned me. That's really young.
It's young, isn't it? Yeah,
it is.
Young.
And so, we just thought of, do you still remember when and how you fell in love with music? And was there a specific moment, or was it just something that evolved, over time?
It was always there. It felt like it was always there. It's like my earliest memories from a child, and they're they're fading fast. It was my birthday the other day, so my memories are falling out of my head as new ones arrive. But yeah, music has always been in my house. Like growing up, my folks were playing music all the time, radio and record players as us old timers had back then, you know.
Yeah.
So it was like the
Yeah.
Beatles and ABBA and Frank Sinatra and Johnny Cash and Buddy Holly and stuff like that. They were playing all the time. They were big pop music fans, so it kind of seemed to seep into
Yeah.
me that way, you know.
What was your favorite artist or music as a child?
As a child,
Can you remember? Is
the very
there
first
one you can pick.
There is the very first record I bought, and there's a bit of a connection here. Swiss artists
Really?
called the Smurfs.
Smurfs.
Don't know
There was a
them.
We
song.
don't know them.
There was a song called the Smurf Song in
Ah,
1977.
Smurfs. Ah,
Yeah.
Slump.
Father-
Schlumpf.
Ah,
Yeah.
the one with
The little blue creatures
Oh,
with
yeah.
white
Yeah,
hats.
yeah. Right.
Yeah.
How do you call them?
Father,
The Smurfs?
Father Abraham.
Smurfs.
There was a big
Yeah.
hit in Europe, a big hit in
Yeah,
the UK.
yeah,
Father
Smurfs.
Abraham
Yes.
and the Smurf song.
I somehow remember.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the song.
Is
but
it the
I
one
remember-
Father Abraham had several sons or something like that?
Well, he
No,
Or
no. It's Schlumpf.
this would be a great opportunity for you to cut to a video insert of the Smurf song. Father
Yeah.
No,
Abraham
but I do
himself.
remember. It was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you guys are obviously too young for this, but it was this this 1970s was such a weird mixed bag of culture in the UK, which is where we look to for our music in Ireland quite a lot. Well, I certainly did. That was where for me a lot of the latest chart singles were coming from. So. It was novelty records were really big in the 70s. You know, you get this strange stuff. And so because I was 4 years old, I think that was the first record I remember latching onto. And when you hear it, when you play the video back, you'll see why it's so catchy. It's catchy.
Okay.
We will.
Yeah.
We're definitely gonna do it.
Yeah.
4 years old you were then.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
four. I think that it was either bought for me or whatever. And so Father, we're devoting how long to this? I don't know. Father Abraham is this sort of elder man he's the human overseer of these little Smurf puppets, and they were singing along to the song.
All right.
So that's where that's where it
This
began.
was the first record.
Yeah,
But
no, there
did your
were
parents-
lots of
like, did you-
moments.
Lots of moments like
Yeah.
that where you just. And your
Yeah.
parents, did they make music themselves as well?
Not really. Well, my dad was in what was called a skiffle group
Mm-hmm.
What's
in
that?
in the 1950s and 60s. So just around the time of Elvis, you know, like my dad remembers Elvis first time round and Buddy Holly, and so the birth of rock and roll he was really inspired by, and he played washboard in a skiffle group.
Right,
So a skiffle
yeah.
was like a cheap way for guys to form bands. It was like rockabilly, a little bit like rockabilly, you know.
Okay, yeah.
But guys would play like the tea-chest bass. So you had a
Yeah.
sort of wooden
Yeah.
box with a broom
The
pole
bass and bass.
and the
Yeah, yeah.
string
Yeah.
and acoustic guitar if you could afford one. And guy with thimbles playing the washboard.
Nice,
That's what my
though.
dad
Yeah.
played. So he played in a band when he was younger. So he had kind of I suppose flirted with the idea of being a rock and roll star, because they all saw Elvis and thought, I want to do that. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
imagine
that's
how
cool.
inspiring that was. You know, amazing.
Yeah.
So it was always there in him. He had a great love of music, and my mum is really into pop music as well, always has been. So I don't know, it was just floating around the
Always
house all the
there,
time, you know. So their day jobs didn't involve music at all, you know, because we all know how hard music is to break into, and it kind of wasn't in their blood, I suppose, the way it seems to be in mine. You know, you
Yeah.
can't explain it. I'm sure similar
Mhm.
to yourselves. It just appears when you're a child, and there's no escape.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
actually.
has you, you know.
But like from the conversations we had, I remember that you were mentioning that they were really supportive. Like that when
Yeah.
you played, they let you play the drums in the living room.
We
right?
had a tiny little house, really small house growing up, and we had neighbours right next door to us, and they were so sweet, you know. Unfortunately, the first instrument I gravitated towards was drums, you know. So maybe I was about
Yes.
5 years old, and I got my mum's knitting needles, and I was sort of banging on saucepans and just making noise out of I don't know,
Cool, yeah.
cookie tins and whatever. So they kind of with heavy hearts, they looked at each other and went, "Oh God, I think we have to buy him some drums," you know. So why can't it be the harmonica or violin maybe? So it started there with drums. I just used to hear drums coming through on records and just loved the idea of rhythm and the power that they had and how they drove the song. And I suppose if you look at most drummers, they are backseat drivers, you know, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I've ended up backseat driving everyone on the other side of the glass. So trying to tell everybody what to do all the time. But yeah, it started with drums, and I showed some talent for it, I guess, when I was quite young, and they were advised to send me to sort of formal orchestral lessons because I was
Yeah.
I seemed to show some interest in it, and that was it.
And then you studied the drums or orchestral percussion
Yeah.
for 8 years.
For
And
8
when
years
was
or
the
so.
moment you changed your mind? You wanted to be involved in the world of making records, you know.
The moment.
And how does an orchestral percussionist become a producer, a recording engineer, and a mixer, working with some of the biggest artists in the world? How did this happen to you? You
Right. I'll be as. How long have you got?
We got
Just go
time.
ahead.
Okay. Well, so you've asked me, I suppose, how did I jump from studying music?
Like from studying to.
Well, I think
Studying
at
it.
first, what made you change your mind? Like,
I
you
don't
know?
actually think it formalized as changing my mind as such. I suppose a lot of young people don't know what they want to do until they go to college, and even after that, they're still finding their way. You know, I
Yeah.
suppose I had two kind of very obvious choices to make. One of which was to try to pursue the orchestral route, which I suppose can lead to some employment if you're going to teach it, or be a member of a state orchestra perhaps, or, you know, get a pensionable job in an orchestra somewhere. but especially in Ireland, that scene is very small and the opportunities are fairly narrow. So I suppose it became more and more obvious to me that parallel to that, I mean, I was all. The thing is, in parallel to it, you know, I just used to lock myself away with the headphones on as a kid, and just listen to records. I could listen to the same piece of music. Well, it's a good job I can still do that now, but I could listen to the same piece of music 100 times over. And in my little head, I was trying to figure out, how did they get that layer? How was that layer put on? Why, you know? Then I'd listen to the backing vocals, and then I listened to this. So I was always trying to take pop music apart as a child, trying to figure it
Yeah.
out. You know,
Yeah.
to try and unravel the magic. It's a shame I did, in a way, really. Once you burst the bubble, you know. It's the thrill of the chase more than anything. But so I suppose it was running parallel to that. It was going to be either one or the other, and it was just as I was leaving school, secondary school, I think, I just kind of decided to try it out, you know, and. So
And how did you do that? Like, how did you?
Well, what I did at the time in Dublin, we're talking, I suppose, the mid to late 1980s, and it was nowhere near the buzzing metropolis that it is now. It's nowhere near the cosmopolitan city that it is now. So it was a very different kind of environment, and the opportunities in such an industry were very few and far between. So there weren't really any training courses or any formal education you could pursue at that time. So I just really boring. I went out and bought sort of sound training books.
Yeah.
You know, I sort of mail order sound theory books and try to educate myself that way. And
that's not boring at all. That's, you know.
Well, it's self-taught is probably one way to say it, you know, to a point. So I kind of made it my business to try to understand. And I had a little 4-track recorder as well when I was younger, so I was able to experiment with multi-tracking and all that. So I had some grasp of how the components were put together, and after that, armed with my little books, I sort of knocked on the doors of studios and said, do you need an assistant?
Here I am.
Do you need an assistant? You know,
Yeah.
it was as naive and as you know.
Now, which one
honest.
was the first studio you could work with?
The first studio I managed to get
You still
an
remember?
assisting job in is a studio called Westland. I was actually speaking about that place this morning. And
That's in Dublin.
It's Westland Studios in Dublin, and it sort of it closed its doors maybe 2 years ago or so. So I don't believe it's a. I'm not quite sure that the studio's been sort of sold off and all of that. But at that time, it was a studio, a smallish studio in the middle of near Trinity College in Dublin, so some of you might know. And it was, looking back, quite a sort of small facility. But when I first walked in there, it looked like the Starship Enterprise. You know, it was this really big. It was the first time I'd ever seen a mixing desk and all of that. So it was in there, and I was there for a few months just making tea.
Yeah.
Getting sandwiches.
Just like you hear it all the time in the stories, you know.
Yeah, it's that real old school apprenticeship kind of idea.
Yeah.
Where you just basically sit and be quiet, and I suppose you just learn through observation more than anything. You know, you just watch how other engineers work, and most of the time what I learned was how not to do things.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Do you still remember the first time that they let you actually put your own hands on things and like?
I don't really, because it was tinged with a bit of. I mean, I'm very glad now that things have changed in. We're going slightly off topic a little here, folks. I'm very sorry.
Don't
but here we
worry.
go.
No problem.
Don't
It's so
worry.
interesting.
You know, we should have done that long before, because now we
Yeah.
actually learn things about you.
Yeah. Well, you can hack it down for later. I don't know, but I'm at that time, and it's much improved now. There were very few women in the industry in the engineering side and production side of things, and it was and still is a bit of a boys' club, if you know what I mean. Just I don't know. It's, you know. The engineer stereotype of do you remember Dungeons and Dragons? You're like like comic shop guy from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
You're like kind of knew you made that. You know, I am the wizard of all of this, and I'm not. You know,
a big
you're not
geeky sort of.
Yeah, and I'm not going to show you how to do it because this is my domain.
Yeah.
And if you knock me off my perch, you're history, kiddo. So there was a bit of that mentality. I'm not going to name names, but it was quite. I don't know. It was tough love, maybe you could call it that. When you know the assistant always got made fun of, and you know got practical jokes played on them quite a lot. But poor me.
Let it out, Cher. Let it all out.
It's time to let
It's like Oprah or something, right?
Yeah.
No. My point is, I suppose that I don't really remember the first kind of time I got to operate it myself, because I had to do it kind of in a clandestine way. I had to sort of sneak.
Yeah.
I had to
All
sort
right.
of sneak onto it and then reset it exactly as it was, so
Yeah.
somebody else wouldn't realise they'd been at it. So that particular person wasn't hugely helpful, but what I do remember is I moved to another studio, and I was given much more responsibility there, and I was
Yeah.
allowed to make mistakes and allowed to just get my hands dirty with sessions,
Oh, nice.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which was just brilliant because, and admittedly, you get given all the crappy demo bands that some really terrible projects.
The ones that they don't want to do.
Ones that they don't want to do. But of
Hey,
course,
so, folks, I think the
Yeah, we
camera.
have to do something. The camera's up somehow. Hang on.
Hold on.
Oh,
Hold on a
right.
sec.
Oh, but that will take a while, I think.
Come on, sing in tune. Yes, sir.
So let's do another clap, maybe.
Yeah,
or
maybe.
that-
Do you do that?
You can do it, Ger.
here it comes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The old school thing.
Du bist lukkast med et sæt om dishes. isn't it?
Yeah,
Ro-
we shouldn't shake the table.
It's
too
okay.
much, but
So,
it should
So
work.
What's
you were
the next
asking me-
question?
You had been asking me. Well, I don't know if you want to cut to it, but I mean, I learned in another studio. I was able to do a lot more hands-on stuff by myself, and it was
Yeah.
with all the crap demo bands. But that's the best way. It's the best way to learn, because your skills of making something sound better than it actually is are sharpened
Yeah.
at an early
Yeah.
stage, So and you have to work really quickly too. So I got loads of experience on my own that way,
That's great,
which
yeah.
was brilliant, really. And that's how it's been ever since.
But I'm sure it was a lot of fun too, because usually the bands that you work with in a
Yeah.
stage like that,
Yeah.
it's like this.
Well, everybody
everyone's
is learning.
expecting everything, and it's just so. I remember those days with the first bands. It was a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and you're part of this, so
Yeah.
it must have been fun as well for you.
Yeah, it was great fun. I mean, you remember, I suppose, there's a bit of a buzz about recording
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hearing your own material played back through speaker system, and there's a little bit of kind of, God, do I really sound like that? Or
Yes, I still have that
Yeah.
from time to time.
well, what I was about to add was I'm growing into an acceptance of that, and that's, you form your sound that way, and yeah. So the early experimental stuff was great fun. I know I certainly had a lot more energy to work through the night, and because the nighttime sessions in the studios were always cheaper for the bands.
Yeah.
So you had to work stupid hours right through the night. But there was something kind of romantic about it sometimes, It was
Sure,
rock and
yeah.
roll. You were just finishing your vocals as the sun was coming up, and the bin men were... the trash can people, I don't know what you call them, the garbage collectors were going around the city, You come out of the studio blinking at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to go back to that now, but it was great fun at the time. It really was. It was very
But
exciting.
back then, did you work only as an engineer or as a producer already?
I think a lot of my training was purely as engineer, but all the time, I mean, both these days, both those roles are combined really for most budgets.
Yeah.
But so what I did manage to get experience was by observing a producer, engineer, the two separate people, and the dynamic that's involved with that. So,
By the way, sorry, that's a question that keeps coming up. Whenever we talk about you and that we're going to record another album with you and stuff, and with our producer, we say that. People keep asking, what is a producer? To those people who are listening right now and have no idea what that is.
Or what's the difference between producer and mixing engineer? And
Yes.
maybe you could.
would you like me to
explain.
explain that? Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just-
you
just-
could. Or is it
Well, I mean,
too difficult to explain? Or?
I don't think it is. I think ultimately, for me, the role of producer grew out of the early days. Here we go. I've forgotten my pipe. I'll go get it. I will go get it.
You have to know, we once
Yeah, we once
gave Ger a real pipe, you know.
gift. It was a pipe.
Wait there.
Now he's gonna get it.
You know, whenever he tells his stories from the old days, he's using his pipe. So we got him one. Yeah,
There it is.
So, as I was saying,
Have you ever used it, Ger? No. It's out of
love it.
plastic, I think.
we should have gotten you like a Gandalf, you know, like the huge ones.
Actually, it's a cheap
like a toilet
one.
basin. One of those. I don't know. Well, so I'm sorry, but producer, producer would have been record company staff, like in the early days of recording. So they were like kind of like what the A&R person is now. To a lot of they would sort of choose the material for the artist. They would pair them up with a band. They would organise the budgetary aspect of the recording. So in the early days of producing, they weren't technical at all.
Do you see? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they weren't, and even you'd even still find that a lot of the old school producers, I suppose, like Rick Rubin, even, and there are many others. And I'll be honest with you, I'll come back to that topic, but they are actually two very separate tasks. And I find that for me to function one way or the other, I have to put the producer hat on, or the producer pipe in.
Like different roles,
And then think like an engineer, because basically, if you're to think just purely as what a studio engineer does, is they deal with the technical side of things. They deal with microphone placement and all of the electronic stuff and cabling and operating the computer, and so it's all very physics and technology based and based on getting the balance. They used to be called balance engineers in the old days. So the producer is more like a movie director, really. I think the producer it's their job, and contractually speaking, they're responsible for the budget, and they have to sort of produce a commercially viable piece of music or pieces of music from this artist within budget, you know, and so they were sort of charged by the record label, I suppose, usually hired by the record label to I suppose conduct the band or performer and to try to guide them stylistically and shape the overall output of the performance, you know, for genre. And so in the old days, I suppose the 60s, you have a producer like Phil Spector who was not technical. He knew how to use a gun though, didn't he? My apologies. But he would never operate the console. He would just sit off to the side and basically say to the engineer, more top, less bottom. More echo, you know, that sort of thing. So the producer would instruct the engineer, and the engineer would do. The engineer would translate. The producer might say, I want it more purple. I'm feeling orange here. Can you make it sound orange?
So basically, the engineers were kind of saying after a while, screw you, I can do this myself. Somehow. Yes. But and
really,
then the producers didn't have a job anymore.
I personally, I struggle a little with both roles because I want to do both jobs to the utmost of my ability, and I find sometimes if I'm distracted by the technology side of things, then your objectivity isn't quite what it should be, you know, which is why. A lot of the time, if the budget is there, I like to hire an engineer, if I can. I'm okay to defer the technical.
So you can focus on.
So I can just sort of be one stage removed from that and kind of almost be a member of the band and be the nearest thing to a consumer ear that they might have, you know. So but that's what I'd say a producer should be able to do, is to be objective, and but ultimately they're responsible for, I suppose, the quality of the takes and the just to get the best out of the performers, whatever that takes, you know. And so, but the producer can delegate tasks. The producer, if the budget is there, can hire an engineer to record it, can hire somebody to do string arrangements, they can hire this person or that person to do lots of tasks and be a sort of an executive sort of person, you know. So I don't know if that helps explain it.
Yeah, sure. Because, you know, we didn't realize that ourselves, but a lot of people really don't know what that is. And so the thing that we answer usually is that you make our songs shine. That's the easiest way to put it, you know. But that was interesting, because I didn't know that, like, that at first a producer was sort of like the A&R. I didn't know that. So.
Yeah, they really were, and they weren't technical at all. They I suppose they understood what could be done. You know, even like if you think of George Martin with the Beatles.
Yeah.
He wasn't hands-on. I suppose that it was almost kind of unionized in those days as well. It was, you know, in Abbey Road, the producer would turn up wearing a shirt and tie, and it was quite sort of stuffy, you know.
But would they have been able to...
That'll come back into fashion soon.
But did they know, like, how to oh gosh, how do you say that in English? You know,
how to do the job.
How to do the job, how to operate everything. Did they know that in the old days, or they had no clue?
No, there was an operator.
All right.
You know, the engineer. The engineer's job solely to operate.
All right.
But usually under instruction from the producer.
All right.
You know,
that's interesting.
The engineer would kind of know how to balance things, but sometimes the producer would say, less drums, more strings, or all that sort of stuff, and so they would physically make it so, you know, as it were. So the lowly engineer can be purely technical and has many tasks, but the producer engineer combined, which is what I do a lot of, means I have to work a bit slower. The projects get spread out a bit because my poor little brain can only cope with some of the tasks at one point, and then you step back and appraise what you've done, and listen to it differently, you know. So, that's what I'd say.
So the next question would be.
The thing is also I think we'll come back to this, because this might be interesting. Also, you know, we're going to talk about, you know, the four records we recorded together, and then you could talk about all the things you did there, like you were mixing the songs, producing, engineering, everything. I wonder, you know, we can talk about this later, but that must be such a difficult job, you know, to combine everything. So, but we can talk about this later, because we have another question about the journey, your musical journey.
Yeah.
Do you want to...
Which one? Which question are you talking about now?
Yeah.
Just go ahead.
Know, I was just wondering, because, like, we were, like, when we got lost a bit before, but you were working in studio, and you got to work with bands like, you know, the ones that maybe other engineers wouldn't do, like you work with them.
Yeah.
And at some point, like, we just read that we know that you got to meet Mike Hedges also thanks to Dara, whom we know.
Yeah.
But how long until that moment arrived? Like, how many years did pass and you were working as an engineer before that happened?
That was possibly 7 years before from me first making my first cup of tea, operating the kettle for the first time in the studio, which is the first thing you're shown, by the way. You know, people will ask you when you arrive at a studio on your first day, what's the most important piece of equipment? And you'll go, the microphones? You go, no, kettle.
Oh.
You make the tea.
No.
So from that point, up to meeting Dara and Mike and all that is about 6 or 7 years, maybe. So I'd kind of worked.
All right.
We have to tell people Dara played
Yes,
keys
so we'll have to
on
tell-
our
yeah.
albums.
So-
yeah.
Yeah.
It's Dara O'Toole, and
Yeah.
he played Hammond and keys and piano on Hang On You Are Music, the
Yes.
first album we did,
Yes.
and I don't know if they can
Yeah,
hear,
there it is.
but also here on Colors. So
Yeah.
he played on these 2 records,
Yeah.
and not only him, and we will talk some more about Ezra and John
Yeah.
and Barry and later on, but we just came across Dara's name while we read about Mike Hedges and how you guys met, and so
Yeah.
we were wondering,
How so you would shall I tell you about how I met Dara and then Mike Hedges?
Yeah,
or-
why not?
Well,
Sorry.
Dara, of course, as you will speak about Dara O'Toole, and he is very kindly lent us his keyboard playing skills on the records we
Yes.
did. Dara is a very old friend of mine, I suppose, and colleague and acquaintance, and we've known each other, I think, about 25 years at this point.
Wow.
25 years.
Yeah, we talked about it the other day, and I just can't
Yeah.
believe how quickly time
Yeah.
goes. It's quite
That's
upsetting,
amazing.
actually. It's,
By the way, hi Dara. In case if you're listening.
so
to
yeah,
this.
he's been immensely busy the last few months, really. But at
Oh,
that point, hello,
now the camera fell down.
camera fell down.
We got some action going on here.
What's going on? Sorry, Joe.
No problem. I'm well used to. I'm used to people falling asleep in my middle of my sentences.
Oh my.
Happens to me every day.
It's over. Oh no.
No, he's calling the SOS.
Do you have
So
it on
weird.
a selfie stand, or is that what you're using?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not working.
Oh
obviously.
no, again the SOS.
Oh yeah.
So
No way. Hang on.
we're so professional.
Yeah. I know. I can see that.
But now he switched it off. Hang on. We gotta clap another time.
Another clap.
All right, now we could
Another
use
clap
that
for your
one.
synchronization.
Oh.
Okay,
All right,
here's
let's
the
hope
clap.
that this-
Take 3.
Yeah, you go clap. Hang on. We gotta adjust
is.
it a bit.
Okay,
Is it better? Yeah, it's better.
that's all good.
Sorry,
That's
Jer.
all good.
Is this one fine? You can
That's
see us,
great.
Yeah,
right?
this one's fun.
Very good.
Okay, all right.
This one's still recording, yeah.
Is it? I think, right? Yeah. It
Hope
must be.
so.
Yeah, it is.
Well, you have the
Yeah,
audio anyway.
It is. It's on red, so it should work. This one's fine as well. Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
You're gonna have some fun editing this later on. Okay.
All right, sorry.
Well,
Back
yeah.
to Dara.
It was just one of those really, really fantastic, lucky breaks in your life, I suppose. You know, when you meet a like-minded soul,
Yeah.
you know all about that.
Yeah.
And we were just as young and keen and hungry as each other for just to get on in our careers and on the lookout for something different. And I think I had recorded his friend's band, Andy, lovely Andy Colbert, who's John's brother.
Yeah, right.
Andy lives in
Alright.
Sweden now. He was in a band at the time called the Bed Hangers, which is a play on the word headbangers.
What
So
a
they call
name.
themselves Bed Hangers. And
Right.
they had just done a short EP session in a studio called Bow Lane Studios in Dublin, where I was working at the time. And Andy was sufficiently impressed with how I worked with them. And so he mentioned to Dara because Dara had this project in mind that he wanted to do. And I suppose, and so he turned up, Dara, for the session, and I didn't really know what to expect. There was something of an enigma about Dara. He's quite an enigmatic soul, I'm sure, as
Yeah,
he's a handsome boy, and he's got this kind of moody mystique about him as well, which is great, you know. But I could tell he was really
does,
ambitious. And
Yeah.
he was, up to that point, I'd just been recording quite a lot of guitar bands, and it was the 90s. It was, you know, everyone wanted to sound like Blink-182, and
Yeah.
it was just getting really tiresome. But he came along with this completely different sound. He wanted. He didn't. It just came together in a very disparate kind of way. But he had the songs and he had parts worked out. He knew he was hiring musicians in to play this and that. We were using samplers.
Yeah.
The following week he turned up with a string orchestra, and I hadn't recorded one before, and it was just kind of.
Oh,
I just
all
kind of,
right.
this guy is really wants to do something big, you know.
Yeah.
So I think we were maybe just trying to impress each other, but we fed off each other, you know. I worked. I
Yeah.
just have very happy memories of that very first session we did, and we worked through the night and just really, really, really put everything we had into it. So that was a very, very, very critical point, I think, for both of us, really, to have made that serendipitous meeting.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. A good few months later, I think Dara's demo got heard by Sony Ireland,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they went crazy for it, you know, on the strength of what we'd
Amazing.
recorded, you know. So, and
Yeah.
he had a list of producers queuing up to work with him at that point.
Wow.
You know?
Amazing. Yeah.
But I have to say, you know, even on camera, I'm forever grateful to him, because he's that loyal and that single-minded as well. He wanted to bring me along with the project,
Wow.
you know. So it was so good of him to sort of I mean,
Yes.
he fought my case to say, I'm not doing it if Ger's not involved, you know.
Wow.
Oh,
sort
but
of thing.
that's so
It's amazing.
sweet. Yeah.
It was brilliant.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
amazing.
Oh, you.
So that was kind of it. So Mike Hedges landed the job of producer for the album, I suppose, because you know as well as I do that the labels don't really trust young musicians or bands to produce themselves.
Yeah.
So there has to be somebody with a name attached to the project for it, you know, to be to make sure it doesn't, you know, that we haven't
Yeah.
flown jumbo jets into
Yeah, sure.
swimming pools or anything like that. I don't know, with what ultimately is the artist's money, but that's another story. But yeah, in fairness to Dara, he set up a meeting between myself and Mike, and so Mike gave me a sort of a trial week,
All right. Yeah.
working at his place in the chateau in Normandy, actually. So he had this crazy old console, which is the original Abbey Road desk, basically.
All right.
It was the original. It was built for Dark Side of the Moon for Pink Floyd.
Oh,
In
wow.
you know, so he had this in his chateau in France at the time,
Yeah.
and I was just so I was really scared. I was really scared because it was such a different way. It was so beautifully elegant with the push, like the airplane faders, and
Yeah.
just a gorgeous piece of furniture, but so much history. I just couldn't even.
Yes.
You know, Beatles
Yes.
have recorded through this. Kate Bush has recorded through this. Like, and it's very different to a modern console. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of head scratching. You have to really work it hard to make it.
Yeah.
With these, you press a couple of buttons and it goes there at the same time. Goes over there, goes over there, goes over there. But this thing, you have to physically patch, like telephone exchange and stuff like that. So I think he just kind of wanted to see how I fared with it, and I guess I did all right, you know. So that was
guess
that.
so.
Around that time, we got Dara's album done, and we got to see some amazing studios. We went to Abbey Road, and
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
so that all happened really quickly for him and for me at the same time. Do you know, he got this sort of record deal and was suddenly sort of pushed into the industry, as it were, with management and contracts and all that sort of stuff. And parallel to that, I was sort of getting more gigs with Mike. He kind of trusted me as an engineer to kind of to do just that, I suppose, to worry about all of this stuff while he can swish about at the back and say more or less.
And concentrate.
I suppose
on his...
he was at that stage of his career where he'd done a lot of sessions, and I guess was comfortable with me as a sidekick, let's just say. So it was very lucky little meetings at just right place, right time, and all of that. So I got loads of experience from as a result of that, and so I'm really grateful to Dara for that trust.
So how old were you then? Sorry to ask.
I was maybe 24.
24.
24. Let me think.
How did that feel to
25.
walk into Abbey Road Studios?
It was both the pinnacle of a dream and a nightmare in the same instance,
because you were nervous about it.
I was petrified, really petrified. I still remember the night before. I couldn't sleep. We were staying in Knightsbridge. Dara's manager at the time had an apartment in Knightsbridge in London, and we were due to start the following day. And we had just driven overnight from a ferry from France. Actually, we drove straight from the session, in the van, up through the bottom of the UK, up to London, and so we were sleep deprived, and I think there was a one day in between. Thank God there was, because I was in an awful state, really. So I was really nervous. I was beyond nervous. Butterflies on butterflies and butterflies in the tummy, but you just jump in and take a deep breath and off you go, and you survive. Try to look like you know what you're doing all the time. Don't let your guard down. But it was an incredible experience, and so that was a very formative time for both of us, really. For Dara, so that's how we met, and that's how long ago we met, and both of us have gone on to do lots of really lovely, wonderful projects. Both together and on different kinds of levels. Dara has gone on to Dara's very into movie scoring and film scoring and orchestral composition, and
composed so many
he's a real Renaissance musician like that. I mean, he's just as comfortable listening to the Beatles' White Album as he is to Stravinsky or John Cage or something like that. He's quite learned in that regard. Very bookish. He's much more cultured than me.
Maybe I think maybe this could be the right moment that we talk about how we met. With Cher, or what do you think, Amy?
I wanted to know a bit more about that.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
I wanted to know. Sorry, Cher.
Yeah.
But after that, I suppose everything went really fast, and you got to travel to France and UK, back and forth to Ireland, and I wanted to know what you loved most about that time, when you were really working hard in all the countries and recording constantly. And were there moments when you thought about giving up, when it all got a bit too much? Or
yes.
I was wondering that.
Yes. There were quite a lot of moments like that. Like all of our musical highs and lows, when you're in the middle of such a rush or busyness, or there's so much stuff going on, you don't really take time to stop and observe, and take in what you're doing, because I suppose there isn't the time. You have to get on with it, and there's an album to be made and all that sort of stuff. It's only when you take breaks from it, I suppose, that your nervous system might catch up with you and say, okay, you owe me 20 nervous breakdowns. I don't know. I make light of it, but it is a very it's a very valid point you make there, which is you're living the dream to a degree, but it's not all it's cracked up to be, I suppose. You know, I missed home a lot when I'm
Yeah, I
such a
guess so,
homesick
yeah.
person, and
Oh, you.
you know, when your better half is not with you to experience a lot of these things, it's kind of
Yeah.
not quite as delicious an experience as it could be, you know. But that's
Yeah.
just the way of the business, really. So being away from home at that time was just how it had to be, because that's where the work was for me, and I did well experience wise and relatively financially as well. Those were the golden age of music sales.
Yeah.
When the budgets were really, really superb. You guys remember it too, I suppose. Well,
do, yeah.
that's gone. So that's all gone. But so it was nice to, it was nice to have had a taste of it, and
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, there were times when yeah, my goodness, you're in the middle of this album and that album, and everything's celebratory and high-fivey and great. But when you're working so fast, it catches up with you sometimes, and your body gives you a telling off
Yeah.
at some point, because you haven't given yourself a break, or you're working yourself too hard, and it takes its toll on your well-being in every way, so. But you know as well as I do that while you're young, you just grab it.
Yeah.
When you're ambitious, and when there's this drive you have, you don't feel like you want to stop. You're frightened to stop, because
It's your chance,
this is your chance.
You might lose everything.
Yeah. In many ways, it's a good thing, isn't it? Because we are just driven. We don't want to stand still. We don't want to think, okay, yeah, that's great. I've done that. I can stop now. It doesn't work like that, does it?
No,
We're always
No.
looking to the next projects. There's so much more to learn. There's so much other experiences to have. You want to try a different approach this time. I think it's all about the journey a lot of the time, as opposed to
Yeah,
actually
definitely.
reaching a point. And we don't
Or
know why.
It should be, at least, yeah.
Yeah.
It should be about the journey.
Yeah, it should be. And I suppose as time goes by, and with the benefit of experience and age, which I definitely have, you can stop and observe when it is going well, and you know when to take a break, and you know that the world won't fall apart if you don't get the album mixed by this or that, whatever. So I don't know. Yeah.
It's all about the balance, isn't it? Like,
Yes.
to find the right balance.
That's it, really. So these days, I like to think I have achieved a reasonably good balance with that, especially with an 8-year-old in the mix. So yeah, you have to measure your time very carefully. Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
It is.
Yeah.
But what did you enjoy most about it? Like, was there something that you really missed about the time when you were traveling around a lot and recording a lot?
I miss how much money I had. If I could hop in a time machine now and say, don't spend it, you're gonna need it for fatherhood.
Be wise.
Yeah. It just falls through my hands like water. There were little moments like that I just kind of thought, yeah, this is why I do it,
Yeah.
there'd be occasional little moments. once that stick out, we're sort of finally finishing mixes for U2 and eventually getting something over the line for them. You know, we could be working 10 days on a mix for them and we wouldn't know whether they liked it or didn't, or it was a bit like watching for white smoke from the Pope's chimney, you know, kind of didn't really know. It was, you're on eggshells a bit with that sort of stuff. So you know, occasionally there are little milestones you think, oh, that's, I don't want to shout too loud about it, but that's great. My name is on such and such a something I've mixed is on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, they're actually too numerous to think of. Thankfully,
That's
I
good,
did.
yeah. It's a positive thing.
I did. I met Paul McCartney at Abbey Road.
Yeah,
Right,
you told us about
Yeah.
that.
So that the chances of meeting a Beatle in their own, where they did 90% of their
Yeah.
work. I mean, it's like really like lightning striking twice, you know.
Can you tell us
Yeah.
about that moment, maybe?
Are
Um,
you
Would be
allowed?
I will, and
Or
I'm
is
going
it-
to I'm going to apologize to Dara again because it's a really upsetting
Yes,
thing for
that's
him.
right.
It's actually not.
I remember now.
It's not a very happy memory for him at all because
I'm sorry, Dara.
yeah.
Oh, no.
So Dara, switch off after this bit. Come back in a few.
You won't be
minutes.
friends anymore.
Yeah, it was just it was incredible. So I suppose it relates back to when I was saying we first arrived at Abbey Road. The first week we were recording strings in Studio 2 in Abbey Road, which is where the Beatles did pretty much most of their career was in that room. And being such a
Yeah.
Beatles fan and nerd, I walked in, and when you see the pictures, you know the image of Abbey Road and the Beatles.
Yeah.
And when you look down through the control room window, the steps are on the right. It's right there, you know. And you can, in your mind, you can see, well, that's where Ringo sat, and that's where John was, and you know. So it's like, holy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can still kind of feel the butterflies as that came along. So we had a really brilliant house engineer called Guy Massey. Thank you, Guy, who kind of held my hand a lot through that session, and kind of anytime I couldn't quite find where something was or whatever, he'd just give me a little nudge and go, "It's that one there on the right. Yeah, press that."
Oh, lovely, yeah.
Nice one, Guy. So he was very, very kind to me that week. But we had just finished I think it was an orchestral session had just finished, and very strict timings, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., 3-hour sessions. And everybody had gone to the canteen in Abbey Road to have their dinner. So it was just myself and Josie, the backing singer, Josie Doherty, who she was singing in Dara's band at that time. She happened to be over with us as well. So they all went off, as is typical of the engineer, right? I was desperate to go to the toilet. I really needed a wee. So, and you can't leave your station during an orchestra session and all of that. So,
Yeah.
so I ran out of the control room and down. It's quite a long corridor down to the facilities. And as I came back up, and when I came back up the corridor, that's my most vivid memory, is as I'm walking up to the room, and I'm hearing a voice, a Liverpool voice coming out of the room.
Yeah.
And it was like, because Mike Hedges, the producer, was very, very fond of playing jokes on people. So I was ready. I was thinking, this is the sort of thing he'd do. So I was kind of ready for you know, just him to be ready, pointing at me, going, "Ha ha, I got you," you know. But no, when I poked my head around the door, all I could see was a look of fear on Josie's face, like she was trying with her eyes to tell me, look, there's somebody in the room. I can't actually say this out loud, but there's somebody in here that's, you know, it was unbelievable. So I kind of gingerly walked in, and Paul had just, you know, come in to say hello
Yeah.
from Studio 3. He had been mixing Yellow Submarine for 5.1, I think, Studio 3. So he just thought he'd pop in and say hi to whoever was in Studio 2. And everyone had gone. It was just
It was
us
you.
two.
Oh,
So the next 10 minutes are a bit of a blur in my mind, just, But he did hold out his hand and say...
Thank God you went to the toilet first.
Yes. Exactly. There would have been very grave consequences had I not done that. Yeah, no. I wet myself in front of a beetle, but... That would be just my luck. But no, like he was, he said, "Hi, I'm Paul," and shook my hand. God's sake. Hi, I'm Paul. Yeah. I didn't even need to do
Which
that.
Paul?
So, yes. Paul.
And your heart stopped.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, it really stopped. Yeah, so that's, I suppose
Wow.
it's
That's amazing.
so it's like you know what it's like to have a little goal or a dream in your head or something. You're possibly in a situation or in a dull classroom or something. You're looking out the window going, someday I'm gonna, wouldn't it be great to be this or that?
Yeah.
And
And it happened.
and I suppose it doesn't burn very It didn't burn very intensely for me. I just kind of always had a sense that it was leading up to good things,
Yeah.
Any time if I'm having an off day, I'll just sort of pull that memory out of my pocket and just go, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Like
yeah.
it was just a pleasure to meet
Yeah, sure.
such a esteemed music royalty, kind of on as a peer, as a fellow musician or whatever.
Yeah.
It was.
You were in the position that was. It was.
Yeah,
wonderful,
it was like, do you want to have a listen to what he did want to hear what we were recording, so he
That's
had listened to it and
amazing,
said he liked it anyway.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so then he had his assistant came in and kind of went, we have to go and whatever.
Sure.
So he was gone.
But
So
wonderful.
so nobody
Wonderful.
else of our crew got to see him.
Because what happened? I think they were at lunch or something.
They were in the canteen having dinner, I suppose. It was 5:30.
Dara as well. He was in the
something like that.
canteen.
Yeah,
Dara was in the
and
canteen.
As usual, the engineers always last to leave because there's something to be doing,
Yeah.
apart from going to the lavatory. Yeah, but it's still a very difficult point for Dara, really, because he's such
You're
a big.
not allowed to mention it.
I'm not really. He's a huge McCartney
So
fan.
let's hope he's not listening
so-
to this, right? Yeah.
and, but yeah. So there was that, and I got to meet Jeff Emmerich as well, who was their engineer a couple of months later in the same room.
Wow.
He Jeff was in recording Paul's Run Devil Run album a couple of weeks after us, so they were setting up Dave Gilmour's guitar rig and Jim Keltner's drums and all that sort of stuff. I was like, oh my God,
Wow.
So I suppose that was the moment when it felt kind of not really real. It still didn't feel real, But there's momentum, and you don't get time to look back and think, wasn't that great, We are pushing ourselves.
Oh, but Cher,
all the
that's
time.
amazing. That's so.
That's just a nice. It's a nice
Amazing,
little memory to have, Thankfully,
Yeah, of
it's,
course. Oh, lovely.
So there you go. That's one of the better stories. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just gotta say this quickly. You keep shaking
sorry.
the.
Sorry.
You keep shaking your phone like.
Earthquakes.
Hang on. Earthquakes.
No earthquakes.
All the time.
Hopefully not.
Sorry.
Now it was you.
That's why I went like this before. I'm sorry because I saw it shaking.
Should I be asking you questions, or is this an interview style thing? Or?
Sorry, I was just interested in all of. I wanted to ask you all of these things, but maybe we could just talk about our
whatever.
Story, how we met,
maybe.
and
Yeah.
But yeah, like I maybe shall we tell them about it was back. I think it was in 2015. As far as we didn't remember, but we just looked at that and then we saw
that
it was
around that time.
2015. Right.
I mean, I have memories of Niall McMonagle at Windmill Studios in Dublin.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
He had you had been in touch with him or something. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
About trying to find locations to record in Ireland, or recommend who to work with or something like that.
Yeah.
And again, very very kindly, he put my name forward. And as far as I remember,
Thank you.
Thank you.
good old
We're
Niall.
so thankful for that.
Yeah.
We are.
So, as far as I remember, that's where it began for me. I think you made contact via email, maybe. You sent me some demos. Yeah.
Right.
And I gather I sort of maybe made some notes or feedback or for you, and I suppose maybe with a view to try to figure out what it was you guys wanted to do, or how you saw the project going. I'm always very keen to get a sense of that, because it's not I'm not the kind of producer. I don't enjoy imposing a certain sound on certain artists that doesn't necessarily fit them. I would much rather bring out what's already there and make it flourish. That's my style, as opposed to I'm going to put a Billie Eilish stamp on you.
You're going to be
Shut
like
up,
this.
Shut up. You want this? That's it.
Yeah.
It's not my style. So that's what I remember.
Yeah.
I can't
remember,
tell you the year.
We did. We had I remember we had a Skype session first, and you were in the mill, and you showed us the studio and
right.
the kitchen, everything. And then we met. We flew over to Dublin.
We
to
met
meet
in a
you.
park,
Yeah.
I remember, but I can't
we had
tell you the
lunch
name
or
of the
something
park.
first, and then we went to a park, and
I'm not sure I met you in a park. I think I remember meeting you in a
it was lunch thing.
Chinese restaurant I met you in, I remember.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was wonderful. I remember you were such a gentleman. and just like it was lovely. Like, it was so open and honest, and just we were just talking about our story. You were talking about your story, and and we were we fell in love with you. We have to say this, like,
Really?
we both did. We immediately fell in love with you, and it was just wonderful and an amazing journey so far. And we wanted to ask you, like, looking at all the EPs we have, the EPs, the 2 EPs, the first album, the Colors album we just did.
Yeah.
How was that for you? Like, what changed in your point of view over the years? Like, how did it develop? Is that too hard a question to answer? I don't know.
Developed, I suppose the most obvious answer, very organically and in a not very studied way. I think between the three of us, we kind of felt our way along with regard to the repertoire and the style. And it's possible that it would, I think, in all honesty, what I quite enjoy in a lot of projects, and what I've seen in the best bands, and I mean this in the best possible light, is when when people have similar influences but not exactly the same, and you get different musical avenues pulling different people in slightly different directions, and I find the tension that creates makes something really special in the middle.
Yeah.
Do you know what
Does,
do you know what
it
I'm talking
does.
about?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
if
for
everybody
sure.
is into exactly the same thing,
Then it's kind of
it's kind of
doesn't
homogenized
get
and
you anywhere.
yeah. If you have 3 or 4 people pulling in very slight different directions with this or that, and you allow them to do that, I think what you're left with in the middle is this beautiful tension. It's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah.
And I think you'd probably find a lot of the best bands or musical collaborations are people, strangely enough, who wouldn't really hang out with each other or don't have that much in common.
Yeah.
It's I suppose it's the difference between them which makes it quite special. Now, I'm not saying that on the contrary, we have more in common than we don't, but there are probably little areas where some of our influences pull a little away.
Musical wise,
Yeah,
yeah.
Musically
for sure.
and
Yeah.
stylistically or vision for the project or whatever it might be. I mean, I can quantify it now. I can actually, looking back from what we've did, I think I can look at it objectively like that, and say, well, actually, yeah. Now that you've asked, that's how we arrived at your sound the way it is now. Really, I guess. But more often than not, I don't like to think about how. I don't want to take it apart, because it is what it is.
Yeah.
And you come out with magical stuff. And, just naturally.
Yeah.
Automatically, it shouldn't ever feel kind of going through the motions. Shouldn't ever be like that. So the progression of your sound, I think, I'm not sure. What I'd like to think is maybe I hope I've kind of maybe encouraged or enhanced the more sort of vibrant side of it and the more energetic side of it that you have. But it's the honesty and purity of the way you write is just it's so pure and delicious, deliciously pure.
Oh, thank you, Cher.
And so uncontrived and from the heart. Like, it is, if you don't mean it, you don't sing it. And that is so rare these days. It really is. Most people's lyric writing is I challenge most people to stand hand on heart and say, yeah, every single line of that makes 100% sense and has a thread, because it doesn't, it's fine in pop music to throw lines together that rhyme and sound good and maybe allude to a certain thing or other. But that's what myself and obviously your fans really enjoy about what you do, is the purity of
being honest about things,
of the sentiment right at the beginning, and everything that we do or add to it should never obscure that or take or detract from it. I don't like the idea of adding production bells and whistles to it if it shouldn't be there. If it marries with the sentiment or feels, again, and there are things I'm sure I've done it in the mixing that you've gone, whoa, I'm not so sure about that. That, I suppose, is what I mean about us pulling away from each other in slightly different ways, and you end up with something better as a result,
Yeah. Also, I think what I love about it is it's always this feeling that it's sort of like 3 kids playing music, like playing music together, having fun together, and trying things out, and I love that about it. And it's always been so we could always be, how do you say that, totally open about everything.
Yes.
If we liked something or not, and likewise, it's always been on such a wonderful level of just being honest about everything, and I love that so much.
I mean, dare I ask, I'm guessing perhaps I don't want to open up any bad memories for you, but it's possible you might have collaborated with other people in the studio in the past who might not have agreed with you in that way, or maybe have had a different approach to the idea of the sort of record you should be making. I'm guessing that's a possibility.
We did have, like, to be honest, we didn't have the best experiences. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It was not about,
It was not about being yourself in the studio.
Not at all. It was just about getting a hit no matter what. It's not about who you are, about how you want it to be like, or sure it is somehow, but it's just not we didn't have the best experiences, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And the thing is also, since, like, to us, like, those, whenever we came over to Ireland and recorded those albums, those records with you, and also when we did it digitally, it's those are, for us, those are like always some of the best weeks of our lives. It's just always
It really is.
It really is. It's such an incredible experience, because you get to be so creative, and you get to, even though it's challenging, because you kind of expose yourself, and we all know that, like, recording, it's always challenging, but it's so, like, you can really be so creative. It's so much, it's hard to find the right words, but it's always, to us, this is one of a kind experience, and the way you do it, like, okay, maybe it's time for us to say something. We still can't believe our luck, because the way Ger is working, and he was mentioning before, he is working as a producer, a mixer, an engineer. He's all of that at the same time. And a musician as well. And the musician, because, yes. So it's not easy, I suppose, to do all of this at the same time. But you still manage to get everything done and make us feel as comfortable as possible, and just get everything out of us, the very best out of us, by just, you're amazing at just sensing what to say, when to say it, and how to say it, to get the best out of people. And it's incredible. And if only all of the listeners could watch, and witness what we are when we're recording albums with you, because this is so wonderful. And I think you have so many talents. It's hard to put it into words, but you're full of talents in all kinds of ways, and to combine these talents and make this happen, what we did, it's just, I wish everyone could witness that, because it's just
they can witness, they can listen.
They can listen. But it's here comes the
no,
fight.
they can't. It's top secret. Our formula is top secret.
But it's just wonderful, and I don't know. We've never met anyone before who's just like that, who has all of this potential and so in so many different ways, and it's,
well, goodness,
it's wonderful, and we couldn't be more thankful, and we don't know what to say, but
goodness,
how
do I follow
remember
that?
so many moments, I remember so many moments in other studios when I didn't feel comfortable at all. It was just uncomfortable to play and to sing and to be there, and and it's never that way when we're working with Ger. It's always like you have to give your all, but it's in the same time, like, Ger gives you like a massage, you know what I mean. It's just like, it's hard to describe. It's just amazing and wonderful.
Little crab claw on the side.
No, it's just because music is so important to us, and it's when someone really takes it serious, and also what you wanna express with your music, and this is so important and so rare as well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're
That's what I wanted to say.
well, you
Yeah.
know, we're quite fortunate with the personality blend, I suppose. The way we can communicate with each other.
Yeah.
Well, like you might remember, sort of.
And we got the same sense of humor.
It's vital. Yeah, you do need because it can be.
I'm
It's,
kind of glad that the listeners are not witnessing that.
oh yeah, me too. Yeah, there's a lot of it is not fit for broadcast.
This one stopped as well, I think.
Explicit.
Oh no, now the other one stopped. Sorry.
So it's
Hang on.
okay. Oh, it's a battery.
The battery
Sorry.
still, yeah. It's all right.
It's okay.
We
Yeah.
still have that
Okay.
one going.
We take this one.
So yeah, what it's the sense of humor is really important to offset the cabin fever, you know, because it's like
Yes.
being on a submarine in a lot of ways. Some days,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
it
it's
is.
an emotional pressure cooker sometimes, and a distraction. A humorous distraction can burst the bubble and reset things a bit, and you
Yeah,
come back to things a
sure.
bit fresher, and you have renewed perspective on it. Really, you have those happy endorphins racing around your body.
Right.
It's good. We I don't know. It's evolved into a kind of a telepathy almost now. You know, it's almost
Yeah.
like we don't have to really convey verbally what we think
Exactly.
is right, you know, and it's arrived at a very natural, happy place there. So yeah, that's my style of production. But what I was talking about earlier about what I observed as a young trainee engineer and assistant engineer was how lacking in people skills a lot of the producers were.
Yeah.
That's more than the technology. What I learned was people skills and the psychology of recording, which is
Yeah.
immeasurable.
It's a huge part, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the biggest part.
Yeah.
It's the biggest part.
Like it's like, you know, maybe to those who are listening who never recorded anything, or it's really, it can be hard. Like maybe we have
Yeah.
to explain this, but
Yeah.
when you record, you hear every little detail, everything.
Sometimes you
It's-
just feel like naked, you know,
you
when
do.
you're.
It's
yeah,
all
it's-
exposed. That you cannot hide in any way. So it's
There's
it's
nowhere to
really,
hide in the studio.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I love about you as well, that you are kind of a defender of the flaws. You know, like
Yes.
when I don't, like, let's say I sing and I'm not really happy about one part, but you guys, you two, especially you, Cher, you think that this is what makes it special.
Yeah.
And you know, you're really fighting for these parts to stay in. And so that's another thing that I love about
Sure.
you.
You
It's-
once mentioned this picture that you would be like a boxer, and you would be like in one part of and you would
against
fight.
perfection.
You would always fight against perfection, you know.
Fight against
Sort of.
perfection. Yeah.
Yeah, which would be in the other part of the ring, you know.
I mean, yeah.
I remember that picture
Okay. Yeah.
you used.
I use that analogy. I use some really terrible analogies. But I'm really
don't.
really.
But it made sense
When
to
I'm
me.
trying to explain my thought process, anyway, humanity in the performance, I don't know. It's all down to the moment you're there and doing it, and thankfully we can't measure it. You can't measure how perfect something is or isn't. It's just right, just works.
Yeah.
At that instant, you know, and can never be repeated, you know, and it's a snapshot. So the we're a trio of perfectionists, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe we're just learning when to let go of it at points. Really, it can always be better.
You kind of learn how to deal with faults, you know, like when you
Or you see, there's the perception of faults, and that's that's the
right.
perspective.
Yeah.
As you said earlier on, what either of you have just performed sometime, and you go, oh no, I messed that bit up, and I dive on the talk back and say that was the best bit. You don't understand.
Exactly, yeah.
And I have to talk you through why I think we should keep it. And you, well, most of the time, allow me to continue with it, you know. But I would never want to walk away from a recording and for anyone to feel upset about it, or not, that they haven't given it their all, or because, you know, you have to stand behind it and promote it, and
Sure, yeah.
it's your art, it's the immortality, it's the statues of ourselves that we're chiseling out in sound, you know. So yeah, I get it. It can always be better. That's the thing about the studio is you know, if you allow yourself to keep chasing it and keep chasing it, you most certainly can, but it won't necessarily improve.
No, it won't.
The mood of it, or the
yeah.
You know, it just plateaus, and think, well, you're just wasting our time. It was brilliant. 2 takes ago, you got it.
That's true, yeah.
Let's stop and go back and listen to it.
Is.
It's like, of course. So perspective is important, and that's where the producer thing is really vital, actually. You know,
it is, like, it's really it's
a
just
position of trust that
yeah,
that
exactly.
really.
But what I love about it is really, like, it's become this natural thing. Like, it really, everything that we record, it's just, we hardly have to say anything anymore. It's just working, and it's also what we have to mention is, for our first album, You Are Music, you had the idea of working with John, Dara, and Essa.
Yes.
And that was another great thing. It's your intuition. Like, you really, you know what to do and when to do it, and you know, and so that was for us another, like, a game changer. That was so wonderful to meet them, to work with them, and maybe we could talk a bit about, you know, the 3 of them.
About the 3 Musketeers.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Because they are wonderful. Like, it's the way they play. It's
effortless, you know, and it you know, when they get together, it sounds like they play together every day.
Yeah,
and they don't see each other for months at a time, but you know, but they can just pick it up from the last time. The reason, I suppose, that I had them in mind for the next album that we were doing was really, I felt that I felt that we could broaden the musical backing palette a bit more. I was
maybe you have to tell them that the 2 EPs we just recorded, the 3 of us.
Right, it was just the 3 of us.
It was just the 3 of us.
It was. Cher was playing the bass then, and guitar parts, and it was really electric guitar parts, and
key
all of the, like, Hammond keyboards, everything. It was so wonderful.
And he was singing some background vocals.
Voice of an angel.
With his auntie voice.
Yes, the auntie voice. So that was the first 2 EPs, and then for You Are Music, for our first album, we you know, he came up with the idea of working with John, Dara, and Essa.
Yeah.
And so maybe we'll have to say, like, Dara plays Hammond and keys and piano parts, and John is playing the bass, and amazingly, and all of them.
Ger
like,
always
says
every band needs a John.
Yes. Not every band, every home needs a John.
Yeah.
That.
And we totally agree.
And an Essa, of course. We need one. We need a Dara in one room, an Essa in the other room, and a John in the other room.
Yes.
Because they complement each other beautifully, really, in a musical way, and 3 very distinct personalities also. But as I was saying, the reason I felt that we should get them in was, first of all, I was just worried that my own musical contribution to the project was just a bit limited, and again, I struggled to be producer and performer. But, you know,
everything
it was all I really had as the gauge was to turn around and look at you guys and go, how is that? You know, you were the kind of yardstick for whether something worked or not. Because the ideas, the parts, they just come through you at that point, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, it's similar to when you're composing. And so while if I am performing, if I'm playing whatever it is, a musical instrument, or contributing to a project, I struggle at that moment to be a producer because I'm a musician. And I'm
sure.
performing and trying to be creative. I can't really hear whether it's working properly until I can really come in here and sit back and listen to it and appraise it. Then the producer hat goes on and I go, nah, doesn't work. It only works in the verse or wherever, and that's great. I just kind of felt that your material was that there was more sort of, I don't know, more braver elements coming into the songs. And I mean, it was always an ideal for you guys to have a session band, really. Your music was born to have, I don't know, just like some kind of some idyllic Fleetwood Mac kind of lineup, really, you know. And so I think we wanted players that kind of understood the sense of Americana that exists in your music, that understood the kind of folk tinged element, but also understood elements of wildness and just flights of fancy, you know. So and I just kind of in the back of my head, I knew personality wise they would be the perfect fit as well, because they just are. And a lot of the time I prefer better personalities than better musicians. You know, because I just
that's
so important.
You know, that it's if someone's heart is in the right place. I'm not saying the guys are not proficient at all. They most certainly are.
They're so kind.
They're amazing players. But in addition to that, they also happen to be really nice people to be around and very easy to work with. And very graciously, we tend to give them a baptism of fire every time. We just load them with, okay, here's the demos of the songs. We're recording in 2 weeks. Come over and just play. But honestly, part of me kind of enjoys that quick way of working, because they don't have an awful lot of time to consider parts and study them and think and go, I need to really work on this solo or this. I just love the magic of now. The magic of now, unstudied, never to be repeated, because take two, they could do something else, something really different. And the most recent session we did with them was fairly hurried, because it had to be. They had no time to learn the songs, really. They were just learning on take one, and by take two, they kind of they were making notes, and I had made some terrible chord charts for them. Poor guys, they couldn't even see it. So they were learning and contributing simultaneously, and a lot of the time, you know, I know a lot of the early Bowie records were kind of like that. He loved, just at the point that the musicians had just got it. They just got on top of it. And at that point, they think, right, I can do this way better. You go, nope,
right,
that's it. Because, I don't know, there's something magical and unstudied about the way they do it. We didn't have an awful lot of time in the most recent one, so all that we could really do was let them play instinctively at various points. You guys were hovering around on Zoom, listening in.
We were. Do you know what? That was actually very special for us as well, because the first time we recorded with them, you know, like with John, Dara and Essa, we were in the same room and all of us were making music, so we couldn't hear, like, we couldn't witness what you were just saying. But the second time, because since we were at home zooming in, you know,
Yes.
And we could
You could be
like,
observers.
We could listen to the exact same
Yeah.
thing like you did, and
Yeah.
we saw that happening. We heard
Yeah.
it happening.
Yeah.
You know that when they played it the second or third time round, there were magical things happening.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's really something. Like
Yeah.
we were stunned, and it
Yeah.
was so.
Yeah.
You know,
We will never forget
we will
that.
Yeah,
never
yeah.
forget, and we
It's-
cannot thank those guys enough for putting up with so much time pressure
Yeah.
and getting things done in a hurry.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what they did was incredible.
Yeah,
and
it was, and again, as I've said, I think too much time. If they had a lot of rehearsal time with it, could be just as good, but quite often they think their last take was rubbish, and I'll have heard something they played. I go, that is it, you know.
yeah.
Just take that portion, repeat it over. So they feel they've shortchanged us quite often, you know, by going, "Are you sure you don't want us to do it again?" And we go, "No, Jesus,
It's
that was
fine,
perfect.
it's fine.
You've
But
no
they
idea
didn't
how
hear it, but
perfect
we
that
did,
was."
you know, like it's
Yeah.
yeah, it was. It really
Yeah.
was.
So they're
and maybe
they're a
we
gracious
could
bunch.
also they are, and also maybe we have to mention that for our last album for Colours, we were working with Barry Kerr. Maybe you could quickly tell people as well how you met him.
He's
or
the low whistle
the
player.
low whistle player.
Oh,
for-
with Barry, yes, Barry is.
yeah.
But well, I met Barry. I was recording and mixing for a project based from Ireland but successful outside of Ireland called Celtic Thunder, and that's sort of 4 or 5 sort of male singers who travel in a show around the world and sing lots of kind of Irish style songs and mix and match with different folk tunes from the countries they happen to be visiting. So Barry was whistle player and guitarist, pipes, uilleann pipe player as well with
Yeah.
Celtic Thunder. He's a really beautiful, instinctive way of playing. So I had recorded him on a couple of sessions before. And so, I mean, gradually, you guys have brought me around to allowing myself to allow more Celtic, more kind of Irish, more Irish kind of sounds into the record. You know, I was always very nervous of it because it's not.
Yeah, we
it's
talked
not,
you into this.
it's not my background, and I guess I suppose I may be being insecure about that myself because it's not a background I come from particularly, even though like traditional music is all around us here.
Yeah.
I just felt a little nervous and self-conscious about my knowledge of it or lack of knowledge of it, really. So, but you guys had
beautiful.
really specific ideas that you wanted whistle here. You wanted something to help paint a picture here and here, and it was
And we
so.
love it so much.
It was
couldn't
so
love it
specific.
more.
I mean, you were so kind of like this came to us in a dream. It's like we have to have this here. We have to have this here.
You can never argue with a dream. You
No.
just have
No. So I think Barry was I hope the right man for the job, really. And yeah, he's a lovely person. He's a great guy, and again a very humble guy. Barry Kerr, he's an esteemed artist as well. He's very talented with painting and
Yes.
you know.
You have to go and check
He's
his
amazing.
paintings
Yeah.
out. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. So Barry's.
It's all the way they played all of them. It's hard. You have to listen to it to hear it. It's really.
Yeah, we got lucky, didn't we? Really.
We can't wait to show you guys.
Yeah.
You know, it just open our hearts
Yeah,
every
we're-
time. It's really incredible.
We're very
So-
proud. We're very proud parents.
Yeah.
We're very proud of our baby.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and so I have I think there are still things I would love to know, but you know, this is going to be the first podcast, and we're going to try to release each podcast per song, one podcast per song. Can I say it right? So the first song we released was Colours, and we know that it took you a while. This was the first mix you did, like, and it took you a while. Maybe you could explain why, and maybe some things about the song that you.
Well, it took me quite a long
remember.
time to start to get that mix right for me. The way that we tend to work, for you good people at home, these days I recommend that when, after all the recording is finished and we have gone through our checklists together to say, okay, we have the vocals done on this, the drums are done on that, this is that. We have a little spreadsheet and all that sort of carry on. That once we're happy with that, then the project has to be mixed, and so that's combining and finessing and EQing and all that. That's what has to be done to it to sort of present the songs in the best possible way that they can be presented. So you're kind of sonically performing the song as well as the musicians performing on it. You use the mix to enhance the dynamics and the emotion and all that sort of thing. So mixing is quite intensive. For me, it's quite a solitary exercise because, personally speaking, I've moved on past the days of having the band behind me while you're trying to mix.
Yeah,
for obvious reasons.
Horrible.
But we know. I mean, it depends on how much of a democratic say everybody has in things. Because I think it might have been Sting that said. I think it was Sting has the credit for this. It says, "A mix is never finished; it's just abandoned." You just run away from it because there are so many possible ways you can present a song. And it can be dragged out through a very, very long process. If the more people that get involved, it can get very watered down and it can take a long time. Everybody's opinion. It's like audio interior design, maybe. You know, somebody doesn't like where you put the curtains, so you have to change. I don't know.
You're right.
So anyway, there's another terrible analogy that has to be cut from the series. So the mixing process has to go on. So generally, what I tend to do is I do a mix one, which is like a draft of my first. What I'm trying to do there is to keep Amy and Ryan away from all this boring stuff. That might look very exciting, but it takes quite a long time to go through each sound and each element and really polish it up and make it shine.
Yeah.
And then you move on to another layer and another layer and another layer. And all the time in your head, there's you have to sort of follow a vision you have for the song. And so you're trying to translate all the technology to make that happen for you. And that can take quite a while to do. So quite often I like to spare Ryan and Amy the torture of listening to me construct a mix, because as well as that, they're hearing themselves without any dressing, or it's like hearing yourself naked, I suppose, in a lot of ways. And you can only hear the bad bits, and it's not really fair. So I'd much prefer to have all of that kind of what I call donkey work out of the way. And present a first mix to the artist and say, okay, I think I hear it like this, but I can't, that's at the end of mix one, that's me turning around to go, okay, help. Now it's your turn,
When he sent us the first mix, it blew us away, like of colors. That was the first thing we heard, and it was unbelievable. We were blown away by it.
We worked very hard on it, and I'll jump in and say, for me to arrive at my first mix, I do 7 or 8 mixes that I scrap and start again. So it could take 2 or 3 hours, and I'll have the track sitting a certain way, and then I'll have to stop and take a break, and I'll go out and take some tea, and I'll come back in and hit play and go, oh God, no, that's not it. Start again. So there's a lot of stuff that I have to get out of the way first. For me to arrive at a place where I think it's maybe 70% ready, I don't know. And then is to kind of open up the channels for the artist to come in and say, okay, how do you hear this? Are we going the right way with this? What can we make louder? What can we make quieter? What can we change about the tone here? Are we doing the right thing, essentially?
Yeah.
So that's where the collaboration comes in, is after the first mix, really, usually. But quite often you guys will have sent me notes about your ideas for the mix and how you hear the song.
You were writing to us that you wanted to make it sound as the most joyous piece in the world.
I basically did. I just wanted it to be the most happy thing you'll ever hear, or just to make your heart burst with joy.
Yes, right. And you did accomplish that.
Like that
incredible.
The feeling of first love, or your heart fluttering, the goosebumps kind of thing. So I definitely wanted people's eyes to water when they heard it. And so my eyes watered for many different reasons trying to mix it. So it's quite so for your listeners. I mean, it takes a long time, doesn't it, to arrive at a point where. Sometimes it does. Some mixes come together a lot quicker. Others take time for it to evolve, and everybody's opinions to come in and shape it and make it. Make
you were
it,
laying the ground for the entire album with that first song.
I set the bar very high.
Yeah, sure. So, and something else. Maybe we'll have to mention something. It just came to my mind, and it's so important because this was another day that we will never forget, and it really, really. So Cher played the drums on our album, on the Colours album, and that was to us those days when you recorded it, and we could sit at home and watch you do this. That was, it made me cry, and that was so wonderful. Like, you should have seen Cher. It was really amazing. It was like
absolutely.
Well,
I keep saying you were like a little boy, with your eyes shining, and it was just so incredible.
I can hit things and nobody will punish me for it.
That to us, it was like, another, we have so many experiences and memories with you that really changed it changed so much for us, and it meant so much to us. And
amazing.
Thank you so much, Cher.
That was another one of these days that we will never forget. So it was incredible.
Well, you managed to talk me out of drumming retirement for that. So I had to get some oil for my wrists to kind of make the joints not so stiff. But
that was so wonderful.
I suppose the reason I wanted to play drums on it, apart from my ego, maybe, was because we've discussed this ourselves, that I suppose the rhythmic element of what you've done up to this point and still is very much driven by Ryan's guitar work.
It is, yeah.
So that comes for me really stitched into the identity of Birds of a Feather. That's the driving force, really.
Yeah.
And whatever fits alongside that fits. A lot of the time, we remember from most other rock bands, it's the other way around. The drums are started first, and then everybody else fits in around that quite often. It's not how we roll, folks. So, and I understood that, and I found that the quickest route for if we were to hire in a drummer, even programming would have been just a bit more arduous. Thankfully, I had the tools to just instinctively play the way I really thought the drums should be.
You knew exactly, you felt exactly what to play and how to play it, and it was.
And we just enjoyed it so much.
We did. That was really.
Yeah.
That was something.
So we like drums, and I like drums. But we are quite precious about the way drums are presented in your songs, and it's as long as it helps the song, then it's a great thing. But if it starts to overshadow the song, then it's wrong, because we must never obscure the message. Never. So that it has to
Yeah.
be there. If it's there, it's there for good reason, and if it's not, it's gone. So we're
Yeah.
very I guess we're very clear about stuff like that. You know,
Yeah,
if
for
if,
sure.
if we don't agree that is that working there, yeah, it's okay. And if it gets that kind of a reaction, it's going in the bin.
Yeah.
You know,
So
it's
it
like
did work every time.
Yeah.
yeah, it either has to work. It has to work. It has to work right now. If it's not
Yes.
working for you, then it's going. You know,
I just have
So-
two last things, if you don't
no problem.
mind. All the lovely people who are listening at home, one thing that they for sure will have noticed is that you have a good range of expressions. The way you talk and the words you're using, that is something that we love about you. Like, yeah, it's just, you know, it really, like, you're talking such a poetic way, and that's also one of your many colors, talking about the album
okay.
colors, you know, one of your many talents.
Okay.
And I just wanted to know, where does your passion for words come from?
It comes from I took to reading very like when I was a kid. I loved books when I was a child, so I was into reading, and I liked words. I like poetry and good lyrics. You know, again, even nonsense lyrics that are stitched together that don't make sense and sound good together are an amazing thing. I don't know. I want to. I've always just want to make myself understood and as clearly understood as possible. I like words and how funny they can be, and how you can twist them around and have fun with them, you know.
Yeah.
It saddens me that I can't speak Swiss German, and my French is pretty bad. I'm not
tried to teach
not
you
an,
from
I know
time
you
to
are,
time.
but well, yes, there are some words I do know. Again,
but
I'm not
we
fit for
shouldn't say these
broadcast.
words.
No.
Don't tell them, Ger.
Explicit content warning will have to come with this podcast. Yes, so you've been teaching me very well, folks. Thank you. Yeah.
But it's a
But we
good
were
way to
taught
start.
some
Yeah.
Irish words too.
Yes.
It went both ways.
Sure did. Yes, it did. Yeah, yeah. So I love language, and I love the idea of communication, and I love comedy. I like good comedy, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say there. Really, I can't.
Yeah.
I hope. I mean, it's not contrived. I hope it's not contrived. You know, by contrived, I mean act. It's not an.
No,
not
it's
acting,
not. It's
just-
wonderful.
yeah.
It's just wonderful to listen to you. So, Cher, I
Yes.
would say, before we ask you the last question,
Yes.
we just wanted to thank you so
Yes.
much for doing this.
It's my
This
pleasure.
was amazing.
My
It
my
was-
honor. I'm honored to be.
Thank you so
we
much,
are
Ger.
honored,
Yeah.
deeply honored, and
Really.
It's
and
great. Really
thank
is.
you for taking all of this time and for just for sharing all of this with us. It was so interesting. Thank you so much.
I hope it was. You know.
It
I hope
was.
really
I hope
was.
you're all
for
still
sure.
awake.
For sure. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And our last
Our last question is,
Yes.
yeah.
our last question. When are you happiest?
It's the answer's a bit rude, actually.
Go ahead.
I better not say, really. When am I happiest? Wow, that's really stopped me in my tracks. Really? Okay. Well, you know, it's a word that I consider quite often when people say, "Are you really happy with this?" And we're getting down a very, very big philosophical cul-de-sac, we could say here, or rabbit hole, maybe. there are just moments of contentment that you feel, right? You know, and it's just something in your mind just clicks and goes, yeah, this is a moment. This is in alignment. You know, in day to day when stuff is humdrum, and I suppose with the older one gets, you can actually. You can recognize those moments when when they're happening, when they're passing. You know, actually, this is really special. So, when am I happiest? I love, well, from. Does it have to be one thing? Like this happiest?
No.
However you want it to be.
I suppose. I don't know. Okay. Giving back to people, like there's no better feeling for me than from my professional point of view, for the artists to come back the way you guys often do, thankfully, come back for repeat business,
and
but
we
also,
will.
but just the smile it puts on your face can't be put into words either. It's just. You know, going back to what we spoke of earlier, there's like all of us in different ways share the same childhood drive. You know, it goes back very deep and very in a primitive tribal way for us.
Yeah.
Music just moves us, and we don't know why, and we can't measure it, thankfully. So the fact that I'm able to be involved in it, to be a cog in the music, it just to be involved, like, is all I ever wanted, you know. So the happiness comes when you've I don't know, when someone comes back and says that mix is amazing, or you know, that's the ultimate pat on the back, I suppose, for anyone in my profession. But hearing my little boy laugh.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's just like, there you go. But how do you follow that? Really? Yeah, just happiest. You know it when it passes, you know, and there are just little moments that you can take a snapshot of, and maybe it doesn't last very long, but that's the good thing about when you say you're happy or you feel happy. It you know, cloudy. Wow, this is amazing. I know that this is great, and it's gone and it's past, and I'm cloudy again, but I can remember that there was that. So, happiest, yeah. So
I'm sorry, it's a difficult question.
Yeah, it is. But like hearing, you know, just having happiest. Oh, I don't know. You've got to a very emotional kind of level here with me, really. But I love the bedtime stories.
Aww.
You know, it's just you know, like
yeah.
So in a personal life side of things, yeah, just having fun with my beloveds, really, with Fifi and with Callum. That's great.
Hey,
and the
Fifi,
cats.
hey, Callum.
Yes. Happiest in. Oh my goodness. I don't really think I can put it into one box for you very neatly. Is that a really terrible answer to
No, that was so beautiful.
But the reward of making something you're really proud of is something beyond description, you know. And it's got legs. It has your amazing fans that you know, we must be doing something right, you know. So
thank you so much.
It's pure joy, really.
And you
That's
made
right.
us so happy.
Well,
you know.
Did?
I'm delighted. I'm really
So many
delighted.
times.
Yeah. Well, you know, we miss you terribly over here, and we all,
Likewise.
you know,
Likewise.
every time
Yeah.
I see Essa and John and Dara,
Yeah.
you know, we not a conversation goes by we don't ask how you been or talk about how amazing
Oh.
you are. So
We will come
You
back,
have to
Cher.
hug everyone.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to hug everyone. Fifi,
Yeah.
Colin,
Yeah, it's
Essa,
really,
Chandra, everyone. Just,
it's
yeah.
magical. It's a
We
magical
miss you guys so
a really
much.
magical meeting of minds, really, and we're just very lucky.
We
Yeah,
are.
Aren't
we
we?
are.
We are.
We're so happy.
Yeah.
so much so.
Thank you
Cher,
so much,
thank
Cher.
you for
My
your
pleasure.
fun for heart.